Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crying Inside, where every family story matters. Here, we share emotional family stories inspired by real life, bringing life lessons that touch the heart deeply. If you love emotional stories that leave a lasting impact, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any touching story. Today, I want to tell you a story that seems ordinary but hides a secret that changed my whole life. It was on my grandfather's 90th birthday, a day that should have been full of joy and laughter. But with just one whispered sentence from my husband, "Go immediately, don't let anyone suspect," the party turned into a nightmare. And when the truth came out, my heart shattered. Raphael and I left Cebu early one morning. The direct flight to Tagaytay took just over an hour, but the feeling inside me felt like a lifetime. The last time I set foot back in my family's ancestral home was when Miguel, my younger brother, had just graduated from college. That was almost 7 years ago. It's not that I didn't want to come back. On the contrary, I longed for it so much. But every time I brought it up, my mother skillfully found excuses. "Grandpa isn't feeling well. Let's wait until next time." Or, "The family is busy fixing the house. It's not convenient for you to come home." Excuse after excuse, and slowly, I learned to accept that the distance between Cebu and Tagaytay wasn't just on the map, but also in how my family treated me. Grandpa was the only one in the family who always showed me unconditional warmth. When I was little, every time I came to Tagaytay, he would be waiting on the porch, holding a bag of coconut candies, smiling kindly. He taught me how to play sangka, told me stories about his youth, family stories I remember every detail of. He had a way of making me feel important, even though at home I was never truly treated that way. Because in my parents' eyes, I was always the distant child. Even when I tried hard to gain their approval, Miguel, my younger brother, was the center of all attention. Miguel was spoiled, allowed to stay home as long as he wanted, while I, at just 18, heard, "You should be independent. Go out and build your own life." That difference was even clearer during holidays. In the Philippines, big family gatherings usually happen on special occasions: Christmas, New Year, or local festivals. The ancestral home in Tagaytay is always full. Grandparents, parents, aunts and uncles, cousins, and even close neighbors drop by. Those parties often last from afternoon till late at night, with tables full of traditional dishes, crispy lechon, golden pancit, and colorful trays of halo. But I was rarely there. When I called, I could hear lively laughter on the other end, but I'd get the reply, "You're busy, right? Maybe next time." Next time, and then the next time after that. Sitting on the plane that day, Raphael held my hand and said, "This time will be different. I believe you'll get to meet Grandpa." I wanted to believe him, but inside, I still felt uneasy. Over the years, all information about my grandfather was vague. Mom just said he was weaker and stayed indoors more. I never heard his actual voice on the phone, nor did I get the trembling handwritten cards he used to send. When the plane landed in Manila, we rented a private car straight to Tagaytay. The road up to the highlands was shaded by trees, with cool breezes carrying the scent of coffee and pineapple. Raphael kept admiring the scenery, while my mind replayed memories of Grandpa, his bright eyes, warm hands, and deep, gentle voice telling stories. But at the same time, I also remembered the times I was rejected, the messages left unanswered, and the feeling that I was just a guest in my own family. It was a quiet sadness, the kind of emotional story no one wants to live through, but it was my truth. As the car turned onto the small road leading to the house, I saw red lanterns hanging along the path, chairs and tables set up outside, and soft music playing from the speakers. That festive atmosphere should have made me feel warm inside, but for some reason, at that moment, my heart beat faster, as if something wasn't right waiting ahead. The birthday party started around 4 in the afternoon, when the sun softened and the cool breeze from Tall Lake swept through the garden. Tables covered with crisp white cloths, yellow lily bouquets lining the walkway, soft music playing from a speaker near the long benches. Raphael and I sat at a corner table where we had a clear view of the small stage in the garden. Mom was busy greeting guests, while Miguel was deep in conversation with old friends. Everything happened like a normal family party, the clinking of glasses, children running around, the smell of delicious grilled food. Then the music slowed down. The door to the porch opened, and my grandfather was pushed out in a brand new wheelchair. He sat up straight, wearing a white shirt with a beige knit vest, his silver hair neatly combed, and his leather shoes shining. Everyone clapped. Some stood up to take pictures. I suddenly stood up, my heart racing. But just as Grandpa came closer, Raphael leaned in slightly, squeezed my arm gently, and whispered calmly in a way that gave me chills. "Maria, look closely. His ears are different." I frowned, not understanding yet. Raphael continued. "The wrinkles on his forehead don't match either, even the way he places his hand on the armrest. I remember it very clearly." I smiled softly to reassure him. "You're just imagining things. It's been a long time since we last saw him. It's normal for an old man to be like this." But Raphael didn't take his eyes off Grandpa. When the wheelchair stopped center stage, I noticed he didn't look for me like he always did. Before, among all the people, his eyes always landed on me first. This time, those eyes were vacant, staring off into the distance, as if following something somewhere else. Mom stepped up, took the microphone, and started the speech. Her voice trembled slightly, but every sentence stressed the role of family and the love Grandpa had for everyone. I was about to approach after the speech, but Miguel suddenly put his arm around me and said, "Sis, wait a bit. Grandpa's tired. He needs to rest." I was a little stunned. Before, Grandpa always hugged me tight as soon as he saw me. Now everyone was stopping me from getting close. Throughout the party, Grandpa just sat quietly, occasionally nodding when someone spoke, but he never said a word. When a cousin offered him a glass of water, he only looked and nodded lightly, neither thanking nor taking it. His hand stayed exactly on the armrest, as if it had been placed there beforehand. Raphael leaned close to my ear. "Did you notice? He hasn't said a single word, and it seems no one lets you get close." I started to feel uneasy. When I tried to approach a second time to check on him, Mom stepped in, blocking me gently but firmly. "He can't talk much, Maria. The doctor said we have to leave him alone." She smiled, but her eyes looked away. I turned back to the table, but kept watching. Whenever someone else in the family approached him, they only said a few words, then stepped back immediately, not touching his shoulders or hands. The more I observed, the more I felt something was wrong. An older guest sitting next to me whispered, "He's changed a lot lately. Going out less, talking less, like he's someone else." I forced a smile, but those words stuck in my mind. The party went on, but I barely paid attention to the food or the music. All my senses focused on the invisible distance between me and the person in the wheelchair. It felt like I was looking at a living photo, familiar, but not my grandfather. In that moment, I remembered the times I called home. Whenever I asked to talk to him, Mom would say, "He's resting. He's not feeling well." Or, "Maybe next time." Back then I believed her. But now, a part of me started to doubt everything. Raphael looked at me with a serious gaze. "I don't want to alarm you, but if I'm right, we need to leave here immediately." I swallowed hard, a chill running down my spine. That's when I knew this 90th birthday party was far from what it seemed. Raphael sat next to me, his eyes never leaving the wheelchair. Without waiting any longer, he gently took my hand and whispered, "Grab your bag. We're leaving now. Don't let anyone know." His calm voice carried a weight that made my heart race. I whispered back, "What are you talking about? We just got here." But Raphael didn't answer. He just set his glass down and stood up. I had no choice but to follow, pretending I was just going to get something inside the house. When the wooden door closed behind us, Raphael turned to me, voice firm. "That person is not your grandfather." I froze, eyes wide. He continued, "I remember every detail of his face. That's my job." I knew Raphael used to be a sketch artist in Manila before switching to graphic design. He had the ability to remember faces with exact details. The ears are completely different. The wrinkles aren't right. Even the way he moves is different. I saw your uncle in an old photo hanging in the living room, and the man in the wheelchair today is him. I shook my head, trying to find a reasonable explanation. Maybe the uncle just looks like him. Raphael looked me straight in the eye. "I'm sure. That uncle disappeared from the family years ago, right?" I paused. It was indeed Uncle Eduardo, my dad's younger brother. who left Tagaytay when I was little. No one ever mentioned him again, as if he never existed. When we got to the yard, we quickly walked toward the rental car. Raphael opened the door for me, then went around to the driver's seat. As the car started moving, my heart was pounding. He locked the doors, kept his eyes fixed on the road, but his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. I looked out the window, memories flooding back like scattered puzzle pieces. The last time I really saw Grandpa was through a video call. I was in Cebu, and he was in Tagaytay. He smiled, asked about my work, talked about the garden, and complained about sparrows eating all the young mangoes. I still remember his laugh, deep and warm. That was 3 years ago. Since then, whenever I suggested video calls, Mom said he was tired or didn't want to talk. At first I believed it, thinking old age made him less social. But now, looking back, I can't shake the feeling that something's off. Raphael broke the silence. Maria, I know this will cause trouble, but if I'm right, this is more serious than you think. I turned to him, feeling a lump in my throat. What are you planning to do? He replied simply, call the police. I took a deep breath. I understood that if we called the police now, the whole family would be furious. They'd see it as betrayal. But the fear in Raphael's voice and the growing doubts inside me made it impossible to ignore. I opened my phone, my hand trembling slightly. Every tap on the screen felt heavier. Raphael said, if we're wrong, it'll just be a misunderstanding. But if we're right, at least you'll know the truth. I dialed, my voice shaking as I spoke to the operator. I explained the situation briefly, but clearly, trying to stay calm. When I hung up, I felt my hands turn cold. We sat quietly in the car, waiting. It felt like we were on the edge between two worlds. On one side, a lively family party filled with laughter. On the other, a storm about to hit. And I didn't know which side I had just crossed. Less than 10 minutes after I put down the phone, a white and blue police car stopped right in front of the gate. No sirens, no noise, but its arrival instantly changed the atmosphere. 2 plainclothes officers got out of the car. They exchanged a few quick words, then calmly walked into the yard, their eyes scanning everything. The party continued for a moment, but just seconds later, the laughter slowly died down. A few guests turned their heads to look. The clinking of glasses suddenly felt out of place in the sudden silence. From where I was parked, I saw Mom stop in the middle of the walkway, her glass of wine frozen in her hand. She gave a forced smile as an officer approached, but her shoulders tensed slightly. Dad stood behind, not moving forward, his eyes fixed on the fence, as if it had become the most important thing in the world. Miguel disappeared from my sight, probably slipped into the group of friends in the corner of the yard. I clearly saw his familiar avoidance, always leaving the scene whenever trouble shows up. The 2 officers began asking a few questions to those near the door. One approached the gentleman, sitting in the wheelchair, still right at the center of the party. He didn't react, just stared off into the distance, like always. When the officer bent down, I saw them ask something, but he only nodded slightly. One officer requested to see identification. Mom immediately stepped forward, forcing a faint smile. He's old, no need for that. This is our home. Everyone knows him. But the officer stayed calm and repeated the request. Mom looked around, then said, "All right, I'll go inside to get it." She hurried inside and returned a few minutes later with a paper envelope. Inside was a copy of old documents, but when the officer looked through it, his expression didn't change. I noticed during the whole time, he didn't look at Mom or anyone else. He sat upright, hands resting on the armrests, like a living mannequin. This gave me chills. After checking the papers, one of the officers turned back to Raphael and me. He signaled with his eyes, gentle but firm. "We need to talk to you 2 alone." We stepped out to the side of the house, where it was quieter. The first officer asked me to briefly explain why we called the police. I tried to keep my voice calm and explained that I believed the man in the wheelchair wasn't my grandfather, and why I thought so. Raphael also explained his ability to remember faces and identified the man as Uncle Eduardo, my father's brother, who had disappeared from the family years ago. They listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes. When I paused, the officer spoke slowly. We will verify this. In the meantime, please stay here and don't leave. I nodded, feeling my heart pounding. Just a few meters away, on the other side of the wall, the music had quieted down, replaced by whispers among the guests. I could clearly feel the unease spreading throughout the party. After a while, I saw them talking to my mother. Though standing quite far, I still noticed her gestures change, at first defensive, then quickly explaining, hands moving gently but not touching anyone. Dad stayed apart, eyes downcast, looking like he didn't want to get involved. When the officer asked him again, he didn't respond, only nodded or shook his head slightly. I didn't know what was said, but I could see their patience. Finally, one of the officers returned to me and Raphael, his face unreadable. He said, "We'll need more time, but there are some points we need to confirm right away. You did the right thing by contacting us." I felt my legs go weak. Everything seemed to slow down. Only the wind and rustling leaves could be heard. Inside me, fear and hope were wrestling. Fear because if Raphael was right, the truth would be painful, but hope because at least I would finally know what happened. About an hour later, when the party was almost over, the two officers came back looking for me and Raphael. Their eyes were more serious than before. One of them spoke in a deep, slow voice. "We have verified. Her grandfather, Mr. Ramon de la Cruz, passed away in March 2020. I felt like the whole world around me stopped. My ears went numb, my heart slowed down, and my legs felt like they had no sensation. Raphael placed his hand on my shoulder, but I still couldn't speak. The officer continued, "Your family didn't report the death or complete the official death registration. This is a serious matter and will be investigated." I swallowed hard and finally said, "No, that can't be. I just saw him. No. I thought." My voice choked up. A flood of memories came rushing back. The times I called home to check on him, always getting answers like, "He's sleeping. He's tired today. Maybe another day." Back then I believed it. I even sent New Year cards, Christmas cards, and birthday gifts to him. No one told me those gifts would never reach him again. I remember sending a handwritten letter over 3 pages long, sharing all about work and life in Cebu. I waited for a reply, or at least a phone call, but all I got was silence. I comforted myself thinking he was busy, or too weak to write back. Now, I know that silence was from someone who was no longer in this world. The pain of loss mixed with a feeling of betrayal. My family, the people who should have told me this sad news right away, chose to hide it. Not only hiding the death, but also staging a whole act, using my uncle to pretend to be my grandfather. I looked toward the yard, where the wheelchair was now empty, a cold feeling spreading all over me. My mother stood near the door, her eyes avoiding me. My father remained silent, avoiding eye contact. Miguel had disappeared somewhere, a lifetime of closeness, and now they all felt like strangers to me. In that moment, I felt all the family stories I once trusted, all the warm childhood memories, were being torn apart. They were just broken pieces of memory, piled on top of each other, no longer whole. Raphael squeezed my hand, whispering, "I know this is so cruel, but you deserve to know the truth." I nodded softly, tears starting to spill, burning at the corners of my eyes. This is not just an emotional story about the loss of a loved one, but also a tale of betrayal by those closest to me. I turned to the officer, trying to keep my voice calm. "Do you know why they did this?" He shook his head. "We can't conclude that yet. But hiding a death and forging an identity is against the law. We will continue investigating." I took a deep breath and wiped away my tears. Part of me wanted to scream, to confront my mother right away. But another part knew that if I did that now, I wouldn't hear all the truth. And I needed the truth, no matter how painful it was. When Raphael led me to the car, I looked back at the house one more time. The yellow lights were still on, the wind still rustled through the trees, but for me, that place was no longer home. 3 days after the police left, I got a strange call from Manila. On the other end was a deep, polite male voice. "Hello, Miss Maria, I'm Addie Villanueva, the private lawyer of Mr. Ramon de la Cruz. I've been trying to reach you for quite some time, but haven't been able to." I was a little surprised. "Reach me? About what?" He paused, then said, "According to the will signed and notarized in 2018, all assets, including the house in Tagate, other properties, and shares in the family company, belong to you. Mr. Ramon wanted you to be the sole heir." I was speechless. The ancestral home, the coffee farm land, even the rental properties in town, all mine? It took me a few seconds to ask again, "Does my family know about this?" The lawyer answered plainly, "They do. Mr. Ramon informed them clearly right after making the will. That's why hiding his death from you was intentional. That way, they could keep living in the house and using his assets and money as if nothing changed." I sat down, my hands trembling. Everything suddenly became clear. The refusals to see him, the ignored calls, even that fake birthday party, all to protect one secret. He was gone, and I was the rightful heir. That very night, I called my mother. She picked up faster than I expected, her voice cold. Finally decided to call. I got straight to the point. "Why did you hide Grandpa's death from me? And why did you let Uncle Eduardo pretend to be him?" Mom paused for a moment, then her voice came back, a hint of sarcasm. "You think I would let you ruin everything? You left, living your own life in Cebu, leaving this family to fend for itself. You're not worthy of what our ancestors left behind." I felt my face flush with anger. "I left? Did you forget who told me to go out and be independent when I was just 18? I wasn't allowed to stay like Miguel. I had to teach myself, work for myself to survive. He was the only one who helped me, even if it was just a little money sent monthly." Mom sneered. "You don't understand. We did this to protect this family, to keep everything intact. If you knew Grandpa died, the law would give you the power to decide. And what would you do? Sell the house? Throw everyone out on the street?" I gripped the phone tight. "I would do what's right. And what have you and everyone else done? Forged identities, took money and property that didn't belong to you." Her voice suddenly got louder. "You always think you're right, Maria. You always play the victim. But you're the real traitor. You called the police on Grandpa's anniversary. You've disgraced this family." I was speechless for a few seconds. Tears welled up, but my voice stayed firm. "If protecting the truth and honoring Grandpa's last wishes is betrayal, then I'm ready to betray." Silence on the other end. I heard heavy breathing, then Mom's voice, low and cold. "You've ruined everything. From now on, don't expect to be part of this family." And she hung up. I sat still, staring at the black screen of my phone. Part of me wanted to collapse from the pain, but another part felt relieved. Finally, I knew the whole truth of this family story, even though it cost me what was left of a home. Raphael came over, placed his hand on my shoulder. "You did something few dare to do. You chose the truth." I nodded softly, feeling both lost and proud. This is not just an emotional story about a broken family, but also proof that sometimes you have to make sacrifices to hold on to the truth and your dignity. The investigation lasted nearly 2 months. When all the evidence was clear, the court ruled. My mother, my father, Miguel, and Uncle Eduardo were sentenced to probation for identity fraud, failure to report death, and asset misappropriation. They were forced to leave the house in Tagaytay immediately and return all the property to me according to Mr. Ramon's will. The day they left, I wasn't there. Raphael said I didn't need to witness that scene, and I listened to him. Later, a close neighbor told me they packed up silently. No one said a word, leaving behind a few old boxes and a note that simply read, "Congratulations, Maria." When I entered the house for the first time as the legal owner, it felt strange. Everything was exactly as I remembered: the scent of polished wood, the picture frames hanging on the walls, Grandpa's armchair by the window overlooking the garden. But the atmosphere was different. It was no longer warm like before. It carried a quietness that was both peaceful and heavy. I walked down the hallway, touching every door, every item he had used. Each step brought back images from the past. Him sitting reading the morning paper, me playing sunka with him in the living room, his laughter as he told stories from his youth. Those memories made my heart ache, but also offered some comfort. At least I still had real memories of him, not the fake image they created. Since the court's verdict, I haven't contacted my mother or Miguel. No calls, no messages. Some nights I lie awake, wondering if I could forgive them. But then I remember all the lies, the times I was dismissed, and that fake birthday party. The answer is still no, at least for now. Raphael told me, keeping my distance is necessary for me to heal. You're right. This isn't just a story about loss, but a lesson that sometimes family isn't just defined by blood, but by respect and true love. I know the road ahead won't be easy, but in this house, among his memories, I feel like I've regained some of the honor and truth they tried to hide. This will always be a family story I'll never forget, an emotional story, not just about betrayal, but about the courage to face and overcome it. Blood relation has never guaranteed kindness. Real family is those who respect, love, and protect you, not just those related by blood, who are willing to deceive for their own gain. Sometimes, to preserve your dignity and the truth, you have to let go of relationships you thought you'd never leave behind. If today's crying inside story is yours, would you choose to forgive or cut ties completely? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Every heartfelt story can touch someone going through the same thing. Thank you for staying with Crying Inside until the very end. Don't forget to subscribe and share so we can keep spreading meaningful family and emotional stories, helping every heart find empathy and hope.